Hi guys, good to see you again. Hope you're all having a great day. I was asked again today, what is the one thing as a project manager I need to avoid? And I thought about this for some time, and if I was going to give one answer, I think that answer would be avoid scope creep. So what do we mean by that? So you're probably familiar that scope is the work that must be done to achieve certain benefits that the client wants. Now, when you price a project, you're looking at that scope you need to deliver and you're breaking that down into discrete activities of work that will deliver that scope. So if you've priced a project and you've resourced it based on a certain scope, any change to that scope is invariably going to change the number of tasks you need to do. So if you were to remove scope, remove things that you have to do, then naturally you'd need less people and potentially it could cost less. But with most larger projects, the issue is actually the other way around. It's that scope normally increases. And this is because up front, you don't necessarily have all the information you've got to play with. Now, a lot of people will make certain assumptions and they will consider a fairly broad scope, which isn't always best because as you progress through your project lifecycle and you find out new information that you've got to work with, and you find that you need to do additional things, you've got additional steps that you hadn't planned for, then that all takes time to do. And the only way of addressing that is to be more productive, which is if you're already productive, it's not really an option for you. Somebody's still got to do that work. So it's either going to take more people or it's going to take the same people more time. And if you're delivering something over a longer period of time, then the project end date will invariably go out. So scope creep is probably the biggest killer that you have on any project. So, and in the early planning stages, it's really, really important that you understand what your scope is. You've got it very, very clearly defined. And you also write down exactly what's not in scope so that as soon as new work is introduced, you realize it's something that you have to do, then you're at least ready for it. Normally, if there's some uncertainty about what the scope might be, there's some information that you don't have, which means that you can't fully develop the plan, then you would say that you have a certain risk and you would allocate a cost to that risk. So, for example, if you're going to tear down a conservatory, just a simple example on the back of your house, and you weren't sure exactly how easy that was going to be, or perhaps you expected that you could use the same foundations that the existing conservatory is on, and then later you find that you need to replace those foundations. That's obviously extra work, extra time, extra expense that you haven't planned upon and you haven't budgeted for. So you'd include that as a risk. You have to very clearly work through, okay, I'm dismantling a conservatory. What are the potential risks that might happen with that? Well, I'm expecting to be able to use the same footings, but the footings might get damaged. They might not actually be suitable for the new conservatory that's being put on there. And you would say, right, how much is that going to cost? How much is it going to cost if we're going to have to replace the footings? Are we going to have to replace them completely? Are we going to have to repair them? So you identify what that scope is, and then you make sure that you have risk allocated to that. And you do this throughout the entire project lifecycle. The things that you don't know, you make sure that you've got them listed out as assumptions and you also have them listed out as risk. So scope creep is by far the worst thing that can happen on a project. The earlier on you define what that scope is, the better you're going to the less chance you're going to have of your project running into problems, because it's far easier to deal with a problem early on once you know about it than it is later on. Your influence over that project, over the deliverables, is far greater at the start than at the end. Okay, so just want to share that with you today. I get asked that question a lot. Hopefully that made sense to you. If you've got any questions, please drop it in the comments down below. If there's any topics that you want me to cover, then please let me know as well. If there's any particular questions, then I'll do my best to answer them in future videos. But for now, have a great day and I'll see you in the next one. All the best.